What is the definition of criminal sexual conduct in Minnesota? I'm criminal defense attorney Ryan Pacyga, and for 18 years I've represented people accused of crimes including criminal sexual conduct. I also protect students and faculty in Title IX investigations or Title IX actions against them if they're accused of things like sexual misconduct at universities, colleges, and even high schools. So criminal sexual conduct, let's talk about the criminal part of it first. In Minnesota, the legislature makes laws. Those are crimes. And they have definitions for criminal sexual conduct, but they vary based upon the severity of the alleged action. So we have 5 degrees of criminal sexual conduct. A 5th degree is a gross misdemeanor, which means up to a year in jail. And a 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st degree, which is the most serious, could potentially carry prison time as well. So they're separated by degree, but without getting in the difference in the degrees, I'll talk about in another video. But just in terms of the definitions, there are some key words that are defined in the statutes, and those relate to the severity or lack thereof in the criminal sexual conduct laws here. So basically, when you think of criminal sexual conduct, you might think of rape, and certainly what we all think of as a rape is criminal sexual conduct, but it's broader than that. In other words, it doesn't just involve non-consensual intercourse, for example, which is the worst, of the types of rape. There are other types as well. So we're dealing with situations where there's alleged force or coercion. Force being something like holding someone down, for example, or using a weapon. Coercion meaning a threat, even if it's a threat of violence, like I'll beat you up unless you let me rape you or touch you or anything like that. So that's force and coercion. We also have differences in penetration versus touching. The penetration of the intimate parts, of course, and those are things like the anal opening, the vaginal opening, or oral sex, regardless of which gender it is. Then there's intoxication or incapacitation. That's another situation for criminal sexual conduct. There's some age differences. Usually the age of consent in Minnesota is 16, but there are some criminal sexual conduct charges that you can get even with consensual sex, regardless of whether the person's 16 or older, such as if there's a significant relationship between the person who's the alleged victim and the perpetrator. Like, for example, you've got a daycare provider or babysitter, or maybe you've got an uncle or aunt, and there's an age difference there. There's a whole lot of things that can come into play for the age difference. Teachers, a position of authority, teachers, bosses, you name it, things, psychologists, therapists, there's other exceptions for those sorts of things. Touching of the intimate parts is another form of criminal sexual conduct if it's not consensual, and that can involve either over or under the clothing. So it's not just under the clothing, but even over the clothing, the touching of the intimate parts without consent, or with some of these other things like intoxication or inebriation, could be criminal sexual conduct. And just so everybody's clear, what we have in the criminal law is not the law for colleges, universities, or high schools. In other words, schools can have their own definitions of sexual misconduct or other rules in place that are above and beyond sometimes even the criminal law. Right now, in May of 2020, the definitions are not consistent. In other words, one school might define sexual misconduct as this, where another school might say it's this, and those definitions don't match up. That's okay right now under existing law, as confusing as it might be for somebody. However, in August 14th of 2020, the law will be changed. The Department of Education has set forth new guidelines for Title IX, which are actually new regulations that universities and colleges and high school must abide by. And one of the big changes that's coming is that there will be a uniform definition for sexual harassment. And so that will level that so that there isn't confusion among the universities or differing definitions. If you have more questions about criminal sexual conduct, you want to know about what these definitions mean, or you're dealing with a Title IX complaint or an investigation for criminal sexual conduct, feel free to shoot me an email, ryan@arrestedmn.com, or you can call me at 612-339-5844.